In this video, we're going to be talking about why Webnovel.com has a slop problem. Webnovel.com is a publishing platform for people to read and write stories, but once you start reading and you start getting into web novels, you're going to find out that there's only about 4 good ones, and that's Lord of the Mysteries, Reverend Insanity, Shadow Slave, and Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. The rest of them out there are just chock full of AI, have a bunch of harems, and are repeats of the same story over and over again. Let's tackle AI generated content first. A lot of authors love to use ChatGPT or other AI resources to write their entire stories for them, and that's because they don't want to come up with their own original idea and they're looking to just make a quick buck really easily. And ChatGPT is an amazing way to do that. Just quickly get out some slop, get a couple of readers, monetize it, either start a Patreon or get paid through Webnovel, and then they just sit there and collect their earnings. I actually personally know a couple of authors who have over 5 different web novels, each and every one of them completely written by ChatGPT, and they're raking in well over $8,000 a month just from people subscribing to their Patreon. Absolutely insane. Now, some people do have an excuse to use ChatGPT to write their stories, and that's because of the insane monetization program that Webnovel has set up that forces authors to work like a dog day and night grinding out stories just to keep their meager earnings. So if you don't know, a majority of Webnovel authors have a contract that says that they can't post anywhere else. They have to only post on Webnovel.com, and that comes with 2 different caveats as well. And that's that authors are required to do a minimum of 1,500 words per day, or 2 chapters of at least 1,000 words each day, every day for the current month. So that means that a full month you can't miss a single day. Granted, they do offer leave of absences for special occasions when you can't update, but still, you are actually able to lose your entire contract and all of the money that you've earned during that period if you don't update, which is insane. And this can lead to authors rushing their stories, not fleshing it out, and not being able to put as much detail into their stories because of how fast they have to churn out these chapters. So let's take one of the biggest examples of this, which is the Lord of the Mysteries author Cuttlefish. He just recently finished up his second book, Koi, which is the sequel to Lord of the Mysteries, and he actually put in his author notes about how frustrating it was to have to release 2 chapters every single day, 14 chapters a week, and how much pressure was built on him, not only by his community, but by Webnovel.com itself, because of the insane contract that he was stuck to. And this led to Koi as a book actually being memed on and made fun of, especially by the people in the Lord of the Mysteries community due to how rushed and how bad the ending was. And they actually have a running meme right now that says that it's actually a non-canon book written by someone who just shares the same pen name, and it's not actually real. Now, the next problem that Webnovel.com runs into is the harem problem. Now, this one may not be a specific problem that Webnovel.com has as a whole, but maybe the internet as a whole, but people for some reason love gobbling up those harem stories, where one guy comes in, gets reincarnated into a world, and has 18 different wives. Now, to each their own. I know there's an audience for that, and I understand that people want to write that. I am not going to judge you for writing those types of stories, but what I am going to judge people for is whenever they come in, write a story that's absolutely fantastic at the beginning, and then they realize that the best way to get monetization and to get an audience to pay for their book is to make a harem and have these smut scenes and have these scenes that just talk about some insane things just to get people to pay them more. And the worst part is, a lot of these scenes and a lot of the characters and descriptions of what happens is actually AI generated on top of this. Now, if you want to learn how to not write slop like all the other web novels out there, there's actually going to be a link in the description and a pinned comment that's going to lead to a digital product that I'm selling, which is going to be a PDF and a video walkthrough about how exactly to not write slop and fall into the same pitfalls that everyone else has fell into. And if you're also wanting some one-on-one coaching, you can also pay me on there, and I'll get in, help you grow your web novel, and get tons of money. Anyways, back to the video. Now we're going to move on to another slop problem that it has, and that's the fact that the same story gets repeated over and over and over again. If you go on webnovel.com right now and look for the word system, I guarantee you can find it in about 1 out of every 5 web novels, and that's because they rinse and repeat the same trope of the system that gives them this super OP SS class rank skill where that makes them basically God, and they start their harem or something like that, and then they get back at the bullies and they eventually take down the forgotten gods and the outer deities or whatever. And this right here is brain rot, because this is also a running meme in the web novel community where things like this, you just turn your brain off and start consuming this absolute trash content, but it just passes the time until the next chapter of Shadow Slave or whatever else comes out. And these system web novels tend to absolutely blow up, which in turn lead to other authors copying that same thing with the system, and then which in turn leads to a big cycle of more people generating more slop. So it's also partially on fault of us as the readers for allowing ourselves to read this absolute garbage, in the sense of that we use the excuse that, hey, you know what, we'll just read this until the next chapter of blank comes out. And there's another problem that makes even some good good stories that aren't slop turn into slop, and that's the translation errors that we see all across web novel. Basically how it'll go is that an author in China will write their web novel in Chinese, and then a Western or American audience who only reads in English will consume their web novel based off of really bad, either AI generated or just badly translated by a human, translations. This can cause the overall integrity and quality of the story to drop significantly. And now basically every single Chinese web novel, including Lord of the Mysteries, has been affected by this. This will lead to many readers feeling unsatisfied and drop a good story midway through just because they couldn't understand what was happening. And now we're going to dive into a problem that even the greats are affected by, and that's the dragged out storylines. Since longer stories make more money, many novels refuse to end and rely on unnecessary arcs, redundant side characters, and even like excessive internal monologues to artificially extend the word count to make more chapters to make more money. And this makes the readers feel like they're running into a freemium paywall where, like, let's take Shadowslave for example. He makes the first 50 chapters free, and then after that you have to pay with coins. I just looked it up on Webnovel.com. If you do a batch buy, which means that you get a discount of 10% off of all your coins, it would cost you still over $300 to unlock from chapter 51 all the way to the current chapter, which is over 2,100 chapters of Shadowslave. I would never ever in my entire life pay $300 to read a book. I don't care what it is. That is insane. And that's why we run into another problem that web novel has, but not for the readers. And that's pirating. Assume that every single web novel has a pirated version out there. If you're ever broke and you don't want to pay for something, just go into Google and type in blank free online. Just insert the title of the web novel there. Now, being a pirate is fun as a reader, but for other authors out there, whenever you run into pirating, this is just something that you're going to have to accept. There is some unfortunate scenarios out there whenever an author will completely abandon their storyline midway through because they just don't make enough money because everyone is reading it for free, which can even then leave some readers frustrated with the unfinished stories out there. Now, I won't just sit here and say that web novel is all negative. There is positives to it. For the contracts, they actually are able to pay people's bills. People sit there and make a living off of writing their stories for other people. They also offer their own advertising for people inside their web novel app, which means that you don't have to go out and promote yourself like you do on other posting platforms like Royal Road, where you have to start your own Patreon. You have to market yourself. You may even have to buy ads. You may have to start your own social media page, etc. But still, web novel does have more flaws than it does have good things. For example, those things I just mentioned, they take 50% of your revenue straight into their pockets just for posting on their platform. And then when it comes to advertising, they don't actually have to advertise anything, no matter if you sign a contract or not. They say that they have an incentive to advertise you, but it doesn't mean that they are forced to legally. I'm saying all of this while Webnovel is subscribed to me and I'm an author on Webnovel.com. All I want is for the readers and the authors to get a great deal out of what they're producing and what they're consuming. Now again, if you want to figure out how to avoid all the mistakes I listed in this video and start your own web novel or fix your current web novel, go click the link in the description or the pinned comment down below. Now, if you want more free information on how Webnovel actually works, check out the video that's on screen right now where I go into a full tactical breakdown on how Webnovel contracts works, how I became an author, etc.